All right, I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight for our regular meeting for the Board of Education for PLSAS and call the meeting to order, and please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call tonight. We have 6 board members in attendance. Director Velazquez is absent tonight. And we will begin with the open forum. In accordance to Board Policy 203, a 15-minute time period is set aside to receive citizen input through the open forum segment on the board agenda. Sign-up sheets available at least 10 minutes prior to the meeting time at the door. So I'll read our open and public forum rules for everyone. Input from students, staff, parents, and community members in major decisions can be a valuable form of assistance to the board. Open forum is an opportunity to address the board. At least 10 minutes prior to each meeting, a sign-up sheet is available at the meeting site for individuals to sign up to address the board. Only those whose names appear on the sign-up sheet at the time of the meeting is called to order shall be permitted to address the board. Up to 5 speakers shall be provided a maximum of 3 minutes, so 15 minutes total, to address the board unless an exemption is granted by the board chair. Speakers will not be allowed to verbally attack, disparage, or potentially defame individual board members, employees, or students, nor may speakers use vulgar or profane language. Also, speakers may be precluded from disclosing personally identifiable private data regarding employees or students. Speakers unwilling to conform to the rules or time constraints may be told his or her privilege of speaking has ended. Board members shall listen respectfully to issues brought to them by the community, but not engage the individuals during their time. The board shall not deliberate or take action during the open forum regarding an issue presented. If follow-up by administration is necessary, the chair shall request that the superintendent follow up on the matter. When the board chair proceeds with the meeting, audience comments are no longer in order. However, the board members retain the right to call on district administrators for information to assist the board in its deliberations. So tonight we do have 5 speakers, and our first is Rachel Carlson, and she is here tonight to speak on parental rights.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'd like to begin by sharing an ancient proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. It seems that not one moment of the last 3.5 years has gone fast, but far too many have felt alone. And for the young students struggling to recover from academic loss due to lockdowns, alarmingly high increases of mental health concerns, incidents of bullying, and the lack of discipline for those behaviors, going alone is anything but fast. It is clear that stakeholders in our community want what is in the best interest of all of our children, and it is also clear that we cannot wait any longer for our elected representatives to act. Many stakeholders have voiced their concerns in emails, online forums, public gatherings, and these very meetings. To quote our former superintendent, Dr. Stallo, we must interrupt practices, actions, words, and systems that harm the dignity and well-being of our students. As a district, we have a responsibility and are accountable to do better for all students in our schools. We must ensure that all students have what they need to be successful, feel a sense of belonging, and are respected for who they are. The role of a school board is to govern and the superintendent to implement. The stakeholders are responsible for giving the independent school district direction on their vision. Tonight I present the Prior Lake Savage Board of Education, a formal document created about an issue so important that I'm requesting that the parental rights and transparency resolution be added to the next study session for discussion. I've provided a copy for each of you for review. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, our next speaker tonight is Bill Markert, speaking on the Policy Advisory Committee roster.
Thank you. Good evening. I've reviewed the roster of the Policy Advisory Committee, and I have to say I'm incredibly frustrated with the selections. I question the rationale used to make the selections and do not believe many of the selections were chosen for their expertise in policy and legal work. My concerns specifically relate to the following. 1, because this committee will perform work that impacts taxpayers, administration, staff, and most importantly, parents and students, it is extremely important that the makeup of such committee is balanced in its beliefs and does not have the appearance of leaning to one side of thought versus the other. The vast majority of Director Franz and Velazquez's selections for this committee openly espouse beliefs that many in the community does not agree with. Your selections were not balanced, in my opinion. 2, choosing the president of the local teachers union and other union members is not appropriate, since union contracts do not require the district to meet on matters of policy. And this will be a new way for the unions to push their own policy demands outside of labor contract negotiations. By including union members on this committee, you are not being fair to the taxpayers or, for that matter, the board itself. 3, you chose a high school graduate with no career experience over seasoned professionals who have decades of career experience developing and implementing policy. Community members deserve experienced individuals developing or suggesting changes to policies, since some of them may impact the local taxes we pay. This committee should be made up of professionals with policy experience on real-world matters, not in a school environment. 4, it is not appropriate to choose out-of-district residents, since they do not pay into the local tax base used to fund our schools. You selected someone who lives outside the district and therefore does not contribute to the local tax base. It is wrong for a non-resident to develop policy that may increase the taxes of district residents, but whose own local taxes will not be implemented by said policy. And lastly, many of the members selected to serve on this committee have publicly bullied other citizens in our community on social media simply because of differing opinions. Their willingness to publicly attack others in the community should disqualify them from sitting on any committee in the school district. Developing school district policies is one of the most important duties entrusted to school board directors. Because of this, I have the following asks to the board. Number 1, start over with the process of selecting the committee, and rather than having 2 board directors make the selections, involve the entire board making the selections from the applicant pool. We need a balanced approach when developing district policies, and we need a balanced committee. 2, use the criteria outlined in Board Policy 213 to choose community members who, and I quote, have talent and experience in legal and policy work, end quote. Make sure they have real-world experience as well. 3, choose committee members who live in the district and who actually pay local taxes that fund our schools. And 4, do not select anyone belonging to one of our school district unions, since their contracts do not require the board to include them on matters of district policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker tonight is Rick Storley, speaking on the Equity and Inclusion Resolution.
On June 12th, Lorinda Welch made this comment. There's a certain group in the community that was recently formed that goes against the district's commitment to equity and inclusion. They want to exclude the voices of those who don't sing the same music they do and therefore do not deserve to be recognized and heard. So the equity resolution contains 3 terms I'd like to look at tonight. Number 1, anti-racism. Kendi wrote in his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. Equity. Equity allocates the exact resources needed to reach an equal outcome. So question, a family cannot do that. How is a school district supposed to do it? 3, gender identity. A person's internal sense of being male, female, some combination of male and female, or neither male nor female. Now, a religion is a set of beliefs, values, and practices based on the teachings of a spiritual leader. Let's look at how the beliefs behind the EIR statement are a form of religion. White male straight privilege is original sin. Political correctness and safety is the law. Woke is to be born again. Critical social justice is the sacraments. Teachers' union leadership are the priests. Gender and queer theory is the canon. Equity is heaven. Victims on the ladder of intersectionality are the saints. Now, local teachers and our children are indoctrinated to have a salvation experience. own their privilege and evangelize by, number one, getting woke, number two, repenting of their privilege, and number three, shaming others. My response to Ms. Welch and the union: we are all image bearers of God. Mankind is inherently evil. We have a sin nature that is enmity towards our Creator, and all have fallen short of His glory. There is nothing we can do, including repenting at the altar of wokeness, to become a good person. There is good news. God sent His Son to show us the way, the truth, and the life. If we repent of our sins, put our faith and trust in Christ Jesus, we can have reconciliation with Him and others. Now, all voices have value, even when they don't sing the same songs. Our children are under attack. LGBT or pride has devolved into grooming children to accept debauchery as normal and question their God-given identity. The Teachers Union and MDE has brainwashed many teachers to become tyrannical high priests of this religion. How dare anyone speak against a cult? Off with their heads. In the PLSAS contract with PLSEA, Section 5, Fair Practices states, no attempt should be made to subversely change the religious, political, or moral values of the students of the district. So the question to the board is, how do the comments and actions of the teachers and the PLSEA on June 12th not breach the union contract? Our children are being sacrificed mentally, emotionally, and spiritually at the altar of wokeness. This is political and religious indoctrination. The predators are in the classroom. Their names are equity and inclusion. Our children are being harmed daily by this religious cult. What will you do to protect them? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker tonight, I believe it's Christine Rowe, speaking on the policy committee.
At last month's board meeting, several audience members gagged, faked cough, and disrespected a board director when her name was mentioned. Everyone heard it, but the board chair ignored this behavior and did nothing to ensure her fellow team member was respected. Yet the board chair goes over these rules at the beginning of each meeting, much like she did tonight. I'd like to remind everyone in this room that this board director, who was disrespected by grown adults, received the most votes by a landslide and was elected to support parental rights and transparency. She, whether you like it or not, is sitting at this table with you. She is on your team. And you did nothing to stop that behavior. Tonight, you are voting on the committees in which the district encouraged parents and community members to apply, to get in the game, to get involved. This afternoon, I reviewed the final roster for the policy committee, and with a quick search of social media, I was pretty sure I had a clear understanding of why I, as well as many others, were not selected. Let me tell you, social media is a powerful tool. The final roster includes the president of our local teachers union, the sister of a board chair, the systems engineer of the husband of the middle school teacher who caused some waves in the community on content she shared in her classroom, and 6 of the 8 committee members selected for the policy committee are all in a like-minded Facebook group. I found this rather interesting. As a 20-year HR professional, I'm speaking tonight for myself and any applicant who has extensive policy and legal experience. Were the candidates selected based on their professional experience, ability to hold this district and its employees accountable and be respectful of diverse viewpoints, or were they simply selected by the 2 board members based on their own personal relationships? It appears you possibly only wanted parents and committee members who think just like you. How are you going to ensure that everyone's viewpoints in our community are equally represented when developing policy? While I would like to believe that this process was equitable, it feels to me that you weren't really looking for volunteers from community members or parents like me who actually have policy experience. I encourage you to keep working for your diversity of thought because parents like me are sitting back and watching how this game is being played. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker tonight is Katie Gabriel, speaking on student safety and board accountability.
Chair Crosby, board directors, and Dr. Thomas, my name is Katie Gabriel. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Savage, and I have 2 students in our district. Your work as a board brings with it a commitment to protect all of our students and to help them reach their full potential, and I believe that many in our community are working towards that same goal. As you and we continue to do this work, I have a question for us all to consider. What does it look like when we ensure that all of our students, not just those who fit the gender binary, who have white skin or share the same religious and/or ideological beliefs that we do, are safe, welcomed, valued, and belong in our district exactly as they are? As a board, your power lies in your work together, not as individuals. I ask that you work to ensure that inflammatory rhetoric and misinformation is not a regular part of board meetings. I ask that you follow your policies for self-governance and hold each other accountable in the presence of harmful words and actions. Robust debate before making decisions is helpful. However, when that debate at the table, on social media, in the news, departs from the board's resolution committing to equity and inclusion, you are causing the very harm that I believe this resolution is working to address. When board members act in opposition to the equity resolution, it makes some students and families feel unwelcome and worse, unsafe, and can even put them at greater risk than they already are. None of you have your own individual groups of constituents. We are all your constituents, whether we voted for you as individuals or not. We don't expect you all to agree. That would not make for a strong board. We do expect you all to live up to your commitment as a team working to serve every student. As individuals, you have to decide if you can go forward and fill this role with integrity or not. As a board, you can work to ensure that the message you send as a team of leaders is one that is welcoming, supportive, and tirelessly working in service of all. I ask, as your constituent, a taxpayer, a community member, and especially as a parent, that you be relentless in your commitment to ensuring that your words, actions, and votes serve all, and that you hold each other accountable when individual members act outside of policy and/or cause harm or spread misinformation. If any of you feel you need to speak outside of the voice of the board, the equity resolution, or board policies, then I ask you to think about whether or not the school board table is the right table for you to have a seat. Thank you.
That concludes our public forum tonight. Thanks to all the speakers for taking your time this evening. Can I get an approval of the agenda, please? A motion.
So made.
Director Burnick, a second.
Second.
Director Atkinson, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0. Next is our consent agenda. So our consent agenda items are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed as a consent agenda item and addressed. Do we have any changes to the consent agenda this evening?
I'd like to request to pull the board committee roster for further discussion.
Okay, so H, the board committee roster approval will get pulled out of consent agenda and move to the first item in new business for discussion. Can I get a motion? No, I don't need a motion, sorry. Just want to make sure I dot all my i's, cross all my t's. Okay, so can I get the consent agenda, a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes financials, purchase orders exceeding $25,000, monthly financial report, enrollment report, approval of school board minutes, personnel items, and lastly, the annual contract renewal with Normandale.
So made.
By Director Burnick, can I get a second?
Second.
By Director Bullion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0. Which moves us on to the resolution for acceptance of gifts, which we have none this evening. So Laker Pride. We're starting with the Prairie Lake Savage Optimist Club art donation, which I believe is an annual.
Yes, thank you, Chair Crosby.
Right.
Yeah, Board of Directors. Tonight, we have our annual art submission on behalf of accepting this to the district by one of our students. And so Andrea Steger of the Prairie Lake Savage Optimist Club will present the district with an annual student art piece. And this year, I believe this was done by Aubrey Sutherland. So Andrea, come forward. And you can go to the podium to share some words if you want to talk a little bit about the piece and the process.
Okay. I'm representing the Prior Lake Savage, am I better off talking to the, yeah. I represent the Prior Lake Savage Optimist Club, and every year we recognize about 7 or 8 students with prizes, and in addition to that, we select a piece of work every year that we purchase to hang on the walls of right by Martha's office. And I was able to pick this one this year, and I was just amazed that Aubrey is only a freshman, and this should really be looked at close up. Do something here. Photograph. You know, there was another piece by Aubrey that was just as good. But I guess I'd like to ask Aubrey what the inspiration was for this piece, and whose slipper is this? So can Aubrey come up?
Yes,
Yeah?
please,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this piece was inspired by a young dancer at my studio, West Met Classical Training in Long Lake. Her name is Ashley Moises, and she is a lovely dancer. She has amazing lines. This piece is just something that I really enjoyed making. I'd always really wanted to try something very realistic. This is my second charcoal piece I've ever done, and I really enjoyed making it. And yeah, it's just very fun to make, and she's just a lovely person, so it was very worth it.
So is this your favorite medium to work with? You said it's your second charcoal piece, so, you know, you can paint with acrylic and oil, and is this your favorite now?
So I do really enjoy charcoal, and charcoal has always been something that I've very much looked forward to doing. It's quite tedious because there's lots of layering that goes into it and blending, but my all-time favorite definitely is watercolor, just because it's enjoyable and it flows and it's very peaceful. I like to sit outside when I watercolor paint, so I love many art mediums. So yeah, that's definitely my favorite.
So Aubrey received $200. We purchase a piece from the student, and sometimes they sell to us and sometimes they don't. So, you know, she's starting to rack up the medals, and I just have to mention a few other things real quick. She was featured in the All-American Elementary Art Fair 4 times. She won the All-District contest for the Scott County Sheriff's Holiday Greeting Card. One of 3 Prior Lake students to receive a Minnesota Scholastic Art Award, winning the Silver Key. And she was a featured artist at the South Suburban Art Conference. So I know that this is probably going to be something you do forever. You know, whether you pursue this in creative career or not, I mean, you certainly are talented. So, give her a hand.
Before you sit down, Aubrey, before you sit down, we have something too. We want to recognize you with a certificate, but just to say a few words, you know, one, we're very proud of you as a student and representing our district, and we really appreciate your level of artistic creativity and expression. Clearly, you have talents that are just absolutely amazing. And I could be wrong, but a couple of weeks ago, Lady Gaga was in town, and everybody was chattering about that and why she was here. And it just so happened that she was timed to be here during the Uptown Art Fair. So perhaps she was, you know, picking up some pieces to bring back to her collection. So we can now say we knew you way back when, if one of your pieces makes it to Lady Gaga's house one day. But also wanted to thank you all, the Prior Lake Savage Optimist Club, too, for your generous support of our students and our partnership with the district. And I've got a couple of certificates, and we'll stand over by the piece for a photo.
All right.
Absolutely. Congrats, Aubrey.
Ballet studio is now having her do work. She's commissioning work for where she does ballets.
Thank you. I couldn't have said any of that better myself. Congratulations, Aubrey. Thank you. Our next
We've got one more.
Laker Pride is our Birth to 3 team,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Absolutely. So a lot of times we talk about K-12 education, but really K-12 education is about birth to 5. That's where the foundations are laid. And we've got an amazing, talented team of individuals who support this work in our district. And our early intervention team works year-round, serving our students and our families from birth to age 3 who qualify for special education services. This team was recently recognized by Governor Walz and the Minnesota Department of Education for completion of their 5th year of the Evidence-Based Quality Intervention Practices Innovation. And tonight, they're super excited to share the work that they've been doing with our students and their families. And here tonight, I'll let Lori Parker introduce the overall ECSE team.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas and board, for having us here tonight. I'm Lori Parker, the Early Childhood Special Education Coordinator, and I'm very proud to introduce, I'm going to pull up their picture because we only have a couple of us here tonight. This is Anna Frost and Julie Smith. They're 2 speech pathologists who work with our Birth to 3 team as primary service providers. We also have 2 early intervention teachers, Lisa Murray and Jody Lindmeyer, who's new to our team, and Denise Maylander, who is an occupational therapist, and our district-wide physical therapist also works with some of our families as well. This team works with our littlest Lakers, as Dr. Thomas said, in the district. We work with their families as well as their children in helping to support those students who may be demonstrating a delay in their development or at risk of demonstrating developmental delays. Last year, during the school year, we received 110 referrals to this team alone. So we are keeping busy and really enjoy working with these families in their homes and in their child care and in the community. So I'll turn it over to them to tell you a little bit more about their work and the EQUIP innovation that we've been part of.
As Lori mentioned, my name is Julie Smith, and I'm a speech pathologist. And I wanted to go through the word that we were talking about, EQUIP. That stands for Evidence-Based Quality Intervention Practices. And as Lori mentioned, we just finished our 5th year of innovation. So we have put in countless hours of learning to better our practice in partnering with families so that we can increase their capacity in using those strategies with their kids. It's been a powerful and tedious 5 years, but it's fun to be on the other side of it. So EQUIP is an approach to early intervention which incorporates evidence-based practices to build caregiver capacity, using coaching interaction practices, and to embed intervention into daily routines in the child's natural environment. So I'll explain a little bit about what that means. So our goal as a coach is sustained performance in which the caregiver has the competence and the confidence to engage in self-reflection and self-correction and generalization of new skills and strategies in other situations as appropriate. Effective coaching can set the stage for lifelong learning on the part of the caregiver. So this is so powerful because we get to combine our expertise and knowledge of early intervention, evidence-based practice. We combine it with the parents' expertise. They know their child the best, they know what motivates them, they know their routines. And when that comes together, when we use those evidence-based practices in a child's natural learning environment, the learning takes place after we leave throughout their entire day, which is extremely powerful. Yeah. I'll hand it over to Anna for a bit, but I'll be back.
So just to share a little bit more about the EQUIP innovation, we are one of 31 districts statewide that has participated or is still participating in it. And as Dr. Thomas referenced at the beginning, we were recognized by the governor for having completed our 5th year of the innovation. And so that's our certificate on the right there. And now, just in case you're wondering where are we going with this next, like now our job is to continue to implement this and embed it in our practices without as much support as we've been receiving by being part of the innovation. And so that's where something called the benchmarks of quality come into play. And what that is a series of 28 indicators that we rate twice per year that look at the steps that we needed to take to make sure that we are embedding EQUIP into all of our practices. And the graph on the screen right now shows that in 2018 when we started, we had 48% of those indicators in place, and we're at 94% as of this spring. So that just shows that we are in a really good place to continue this work moving forward without the training and the support that we've had as being part of the innovation.
So this is a picture of one of our families. Lisa Marais, our early intervention teacher, was their primary service provider, which means that she was there for every single visit. I was lucky enough to be just a related service provider. So I just wanted to share some feedback that they gave when we asked them kind of about their experience with the program. They said, giving parents the tools to lead our child's development makes so much sense because parents spend the most time with their kids and in many more settings. We can provide so much more support than you can get in a clinic or a 1-hour session alone. Melia's growth has been amazing under this model. Family, friends, and teachers tell us all the time that they cannot believe how much he's progressed. Our anxiety about new situations or having other people watch him is gone because Melio can express himself and process the world around him, and we have the tools to support him. This family is an exceptional example of our program because they were very wary with services to begin with. We received their referral, we did contact them, and they told us that they were going to pursue private evaluation and services, and then they actually came back to us. They didn't have a great experience just because their son had some really unique needs, and the private practice just wasn't working for him. So they were just a little wary about how on earth, if private practice didn't work out, how on earth were they going to make a difference in his development? And they were such an example on how to reflect on their own practice and really combine their expertise with knowing their son and be open to learning about ours, and his progress was immense. It's a great journey to watch. And that's the end. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Awesome.
And thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming tonight. That was great. Okay, on to personnel items. So tonight, Director Herman will give us some information about additional 23-24 ESS staffing, a request that's in our board packet.
Thank you, Chair Crosby, members of the board, Dr. Thomas. Tonight, we are bringing forward 4 different requests for additional staffing in our non-certified group, as outlined in the memo, with the estimated cost and the rationale for the additions. It's open to any questions that anyone may have.
Before we go into questions, can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
By Director Olsted, a second?
Second.
By Director Atkinson. Okay, any questions or comments for Director Herman? Okay. Anyone? Okay, just making sure. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes 6-0. We have no unfinished business. And new business, we will go on to our added item of the board committee roster approval. So can I get a motion to approve the board committee roster?
Made.
By Director Olsted, can I get a second?
Second.
By Director Burnick, and I'll open it up to comments, questions, discussion for the board. And any questions for admin that are present that can help.
Thank you. I think one of the things that came up with the curriculum committee is that per Minnesota state statute, we are required to have 2/3 parent and community members, and I'm thrilled that we were able to include community members for our selections. Jess and I are the board directors on this committee. We worked with Dan Edwards. While I thought we nailed that number at 18 community members and parents, I'm questioning whether we're short one community member because we're just shy of 2/3. And it really has to do with the fact that we've added more admin. And so I wanted to bring to the table a discussion to make sure we're all aligned and that we're meeting Minnesota state statute on possibly adding one of our alternates that we discussed to this roster. And Jess, if you have anything else you'd like to add to that.
Does it need to be a community member
It's 2/3.
to add?
Minnesota
Or is
statute
it-
says 2/3 parent and community members, is what the law says. Our committee has to be made up of 2/3 parent and community members. So I think when we had met with Dan, we had come up with 3 alternates, and
Right.
I'm okay going with our first and alternate, but I just wanted to, like I said, bring it to a discussion to the table.
Go ahead, Dr.
Okay,
Thomas.
thank you. Yeah, I spoke with Dr. Edwards this morning about this matter, actually, and to align to the state statute, a couple of options we have is to, go to the list of alternates that you all had identified as kind of next in the queue, or you could reduce a member, and at this point, I would just say add an additional community member. That was his will as well when we spoke this morning. So you all have a queue that's already there, and I would just add that next person in the queue to go ahead and round it out to meet the statutory requirements of the thresholds of 2/3.
No, that's great. We had a lot of great people, and that's why we got our alternates, so for this reason. So that would be fine.
So I guess with the board, pending our reach out to the individual, the next person in line, we would, your approval tonight would approve the 2/3 statutory requirement. The individual may not be identified because we want to, talk with that individual first, but know that we would meet that requirement.
So do we need to come back then to get approval on like the revised list, or are we good to move forward
I would
tonight?
ask the board if the board is willing to, the board members and Dr. Edwards, I think, have a good process that put together a nice, robust list of individuals, and you have 3 next in the queue. I would just trust your process. So I would ask the board if you'd be willing to approve the list this evening, knowing that the next person in line, we have 3 potentials in line. If the first says no, the second says no, we have a third still. I'm sure we're going to we'll have one of the 3 say yes.
Yeah.
So if the board is willing to do that for efficiency, because they want to get the work started.
Yeah, and then we still have on our list, we still have I'm sorry, I believe the elementary principal has been determined.
Correct. Sam Frederickson is the elementary principal.
And then the high school teacher is still TBD, so at that time.
Once they come back.
Yeah, once
Yep.
they come back
We'll
to
post for
session,
that.
we can review that as
Yeah.
well with Mr.
And-
Edwards.
Teachers aren't checking their email necessarily right now, so.
Sure, and I think just for full disclosure, our first meeting of this committee is in October, so we do have time. So if, again, will of the board, if it's okay to move forward, great. If not, we do have a little bit of time, since our committee doesn't meet for the first time, first time until October, but I just wanted to put that
Gotcha.
out there.
Gotcha.
Right?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And I would expect that you guys would meet with Dr. Eggers like you did originally in order to determine this. And I'm not surprised you didn't have teachers. So.
No, and
yeah.
well, and that's why we picked the alternates, so that if something like this came to fruition, then we would be all set and we could move forward quickly.
Correct. Okay,
Great.
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. So that's teaching and learning. Any questions about the others?
For the policy committee, I understand that the original pack stated that we were to have 2 teachers represented, and it appears we have 3 with Mr. Bodette as the teachers union president. You know, looking into the teachers union contract and knowing that, I think it's my understanding that policy is not something that's negotiable in the teachers union contract. I'd have to pull it up to read the exact language. But I'm wondering if that serves as a conflict of interest on this committee, and I'd like to better understand why maybe he was chosen, or why there's 3 teachers versus 2 that was originally part of the pack.
Director Herman, do you want to respond? Okay.
Dr. Atkinson, member of the boards, Dr. Thomas, when looking through all the applications, we found that a lot of our applicants served in multiple different stakeholder groups, parent groups representing elementary, middle school, high school, staff groups, as well as living in our community. So when we were looking at the individuals who did apply, he was an individual that not only met the staff group, but also met the elementary parent and middle school parent categories.
Can you help me understand just because I'm not sure I do, the conflict of interest you see with the union representation?
And let me just add that he is
Sorry.
not there as a union representative. He is a teacher as well as a parent with kids in 2 different areas, both elementary as well as secondary.
But he does serve as the president of the teachers union, is that correct?
That is correct, but he's not there in that capacity.
Okay, but he's listed under teachers and building staff, so perhaps that's where the confusion is, because he's listed under teachers and building staff.
Correct, but so are the other 2. And he also serves as a parent of elementary and middle school. We wanted a good distribution.
So, so just to, like, can you speak to that a little bit more about the conflict that
Yeah,
you're
let me pull up
concerned about?
it'll take me a second to pull up the teachers union contract, if you just give me a second. There's some
Okay.
language in the teachers union contract, and Emily, maybe you can find it faster than I can, but I believe it's right in the beginning of the contract that states that the teachers union, that they are not, as part of the contract, they cannot negotiate policy or managerial procedures as part of their contract, if that is correct.
Director Atkinson, I don't want to provide misinformation, so I'm not exactly sure which part of the contract you're referring to. If it's referring to the inherent managerial rights of the contract, that's specific to the topics that can or cannot be negotiated within the contract. It does not speak to the representation that members of a bargaining unit can participate on different committees or advisory groups. A different thing I forgot to previously add, Director Atkinson, and I apologize, we also We're looking at the staff representation from different positions as well. So bringing forward a special education perspective, elementary teacher perspective, and a social worker perspective. I failed to mention that earlier as well, so I wanted to add that piece. I would be happy to look further into the contract question for you, but I'm not specifically aware which part you're referring to.
I apologize. It's under Article 4, School District Rights. So these are the rights of our school district. Section 1, and again, I'm not a lawyer as far as understanding contracts, but this is why I'm bringing this to the attention. The inherent managerial rights. The PLSEA recognizes that the school district is not required to meet and negotiate on matters of inherent managerial policy, which include but are not limited to such areas of discretion or policy as the functions and programs of the school district, its overall budget, utilization of technology, the organizational structure, and selection and direction and number of personnel. So with that in their contract, is it a conflict of interest for our teachers union president to serve on this policy committee?
Director Atkinson, that it would not be, in my opinion, that it'd be a conflict of interest. Again, that section specifically is referring to negotiations of the contract. It doesn't preclude representation of teachers from the bargaining unit or administrative assistants from a bargaining unit. Principals are in a bargaining unit. Any of our other bargaining units from being representatives on any of our advisory committees. What that specific and inherent managerial policy is referring to is statutory requirements of what we are required to and what we are not required to negotiate around.
Thanks for that clarification,
Thank you.
Director Herman. Any other questions, or does that raise any other questions for board members? Has that clarified concerns?
I don't have any concerns about him wearing a couple hats. We all do it. We all know the lanes we're in, right? So I think he's an asset to his experience in special ed. Oh, he's an asset with his experience in special ed and his experience in our community, I think. As a parent, I don't know what would preclude him, or I trust the process that we went through. We haven't had a lot of questions on the finance one that I helped pick out. So it just feels like, I don't have any concerns. I think you've all done a really good job. Trust the process.
Okay, any other discussion from board members?
And then the other thing that I'd like to I'd like to better understand, obviously we heard from a couple community members this evening about the selections that were made of the community members. I'd like to better understand how those selections were made and just kind of add some transparency to the process. And I know from looking at the list, we had a lot of great candidates that applied for both committees. So I'd just like to better understand that.
Were you involved in helping pick out the ones for your list? What criteria did you use?
Yes.
Applications, right?
Yes, I'd like someone to answer my question first, please.
Like me, Therese?
Go for it.
Okay. Director Atkinson, members of the board, Dr. Thomas, we met with the two board members and myself to review all the applications that were submitted, along with the different stakeholder groups that we were trying to meet. And then we look for diverse perspective in staff and community members, different parent groups to make sure we had elementary level, middle level, high school level. We did limit our review of the applications to the applications submitted, the data submitted. We didn't look into anything outside of the applications being provided to us. We kept it to be limited to the materials that were provided in the application process, and then went through the list and trying to find different perspectives based off of those different areas: staff, community members that don't currently have students, were students, parents, different levels of parents, all the different perspectives. And then, like you said, Director Atkinson, we had a lot of great applications, so just trying to narrow down that list to make sure that we met all those different categories.
Thank you. I think one of the questions that was brought up was, having applicants that had policy experience, and I know there was several on the list, perhaps understanding why someone who didn't have policy experience, why they would be selected for this committee versus someone who has 20-plus years policy experience.
Director Atkinson, member of the boards, Dr. Thomas, when looking at all of the application materials, again, we looked at the different stakeholder groups and the different experience that we were looking at, not just with policy experience, legal, advocacy work, work within the education system, trying to diversify the perspectives. We did have a lot of really great legal and policy work applications that were selected on the committee, so feel very confident in that. We also have a lot of human resources experience that are on the committee, advocacy experience around policy and developing policy in multiple different industries. So we looked at all of those different aspects when trying to figure out and matching within the different categories to make sure we met all the categories and had the diverse experience in the different areas we're looking for.
Thank you, Director Herman. Any other questions or comments, or Director France, do you want to add any of that as part of the leadership on the committee?
Well, the first thing we wanted to do is make sure we had distribution. So elementary parents, middle school parents, high school parents, of those that had the policy experience or the necessary experiences we put on there. We also wanted people who were community members who did not have kids in the district, as well as at least one representative of open enrolled students, since that's a larger and larger percentage of our population. And after that, we ended up with a fairly tight list of trying to make sure that we had the distribution of elementary, middle, and high school in particular, as well as community members. So that was really, really important.
Great, thanks for the clarification. Are we ready to move forward? I don't want to stop discussion, but if we're ready to move forward, we can vote.
I would just like to state one more thing that, I think it's really important. It says in the scope of the charter that providing diverse stakeholder perspectives is an important part of the policy committee. In doing my research on policy committees, what I find was interesting is that as an independent school district, we are one of the only districts in the state that has a policy advisory committee that now has community members and parents members as part of the this committee. Typically, it's 3 board directors plus admin. Now, I'm not saying I don't support having parent and community members, but I think it's important that they have that diverse perspectives are represented as represented on the charter. I would say, I reviewed the list. I also have some concerns with diverse perspectives being represented. And I think it would be beneficial if we could go back and add maybe 2 that have maybe different perspectives to than what's currently represented.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Mm-hmm. When we talk about diverse perspectives, where are we obtaining that information? I'm assuming it's from Facebook, if I have to just be brutally honest. And I would question, and maybe Emily can help us out here, just about in the HR world, how much of social media plays a role in determining somebody's qualifications? Because I could pull up a Facebook and see somebody's a friend with somebody and make an instant judgment. And I choose not to do that, but I'm curious how we would apply this, because I'm just...
People filled out applications and stated what their work experience. Some people even handed in resumes.
But I'm
That's what we
assuming
used.
that didn't have, like, what bumper sticker might be on my car. So I'm just
No,
curious,
of course not.
And I know
We didn't
that-
want to go down that path, as Emily stated, on purpose. We wanted to look at
Right.
qualifications and distribution.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
when we picked out finance committee, I mean, at one point, we did say we had more qualified people than we thought, and we did add some. If that's the conversation you want to have, that's much different than, I want to add people because I don't think it's showing a diversity of our community. That's just, but maybe Emily could help me out here.
The other thing I want to qualify is that before we decided on getting engaging the community through the various policies, we did do an extensive search as well as feedback to the executive team at that time of the various schools that actually did have policy committees that did engage community members, and there were quite a few, not only in the state of Minnesota, but across the United States of similar states. So, and we did
For
look.
a point of order, can you
throughout-
just clarify which one's within Minnesota? Just because I've checked around and I haven't found any. And I'm not saying it's
We
wrong.
did this a year and a half ago, and I do not have it with me, but we did do it. And that's how we decided on making sure that community members were part of the committee. And we did model the finance as well as other committees on that. So, and that was a combined effort, as Chair Crosby knows. So that was done a year and a half to 2 years ago before we made these changes.
I think we're ready to move forward, unless you have more questions. The only thing I'll add is, kind of to your point, Director Burnick, like, until we have people in seats doing the work, we can only base the work on resumes and what they're bringing forward for their qualifications. We can't make assumptions about anything else. So, I mean, if we get into this 6 months from now and we're not getting diversity of thought on the policy committee, then I think it's within the board's purview to say we need more interesting diversity of thought and more ideas. But I think for now, I think we're ready to move forward. That's my judgment call here, in the interest of time. Again, if you have more questions or.
No, I think that's fair. And knowing that the policy committee is open for anyone to attend, I think that other people can attend it and we'll be able to see if there is diversity of thought being respected within our committee. So.
If I may just add one, all the committees are open for folks to attend. And so again, in the spirit of transparency, we are, and I am committed as your superintendent and working with the board to ensure we are bringing diverse perspectives to the table, because everyone has equal and intrinsic voice in this community, and it's important that we hear those voices. And they're not always going to be on the same side, not always seeing eye to eye, and that's okay. And we're going to work through that. But that's how we kind of 360 an issue or a conversation to make sure that we're not leaving things off the table. So I just appreciate the board and the staff who have assembled these teams. I think this really is executing on the vision of our transparency. And I do trust the process of our board members and our staff. And we will now watch the process unfold. And as we see things from a management side, you all see things from a governance side, we will have those conversations to course correct, level set, et cetera, as we go down this journey together. But I just want to thank the board and the staff for your commitment to assembling these new committees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say just one more thing? I was really excited. I sit on the teaching and learning committee, not finance or policy, but I was very, very impressed with the number of applications that we received for that committee. And I was really excited about that. And I don't want to speak for Dan because he's not here, Dr. Edwards, but he said it was quite a bit more applications than he's received in the last couple of years, and that was really exciting to me. And I don't want to speak for you either, Lisa, but I just really, really, really looking forward to this. And I think it's going to be great, and I think it's going to bring a lot of people into the same room and have some really great conversations. And I'm actually very, very much looking forward to it. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Olson, thank you all. Okay, all in favor of approving the committee rosters as stands with the exception of adding
Someone to the
teaching and
T&L.
learning to be the 2/3 community and parent members. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 6-0. Okay, thank you, everyone. In terms of our next step for new business, we're on a summer program report, including targeted services and special ed by Director Chuka. Thank you for coming tonight.
Absolutely. All right. Chair Crosby, members of the board, Dr. Thomas, I'm here to talk to you about all the exciting things we do throughout the summer. I'm kind of pinch hitting for everyone, so it's more than just special ed I'm going to talk about tonight. We have summer services that run through special education. We have targeted services, credit recovery, community ed, covering folks from birth to adulthood. And I'm going to try to run through all of them in 5 minutes or less. All right? In special education, we provide extended school year services per a student's IEP based on meeting criteria that's laid out through regression recruitment, self-sufficiency, or some other unique need an IEP team identifies. And I want to give a big shout out to all the staff that worked this summer, and specifically also to my admin team of Kristen Leiftow, Emily Virant, Lori Parker, and Kate Kyle. They really helped organize extended school year services. In June, we ran center-based services through K-12 at Red Tail Ridge, Edgewood, and Prior Lake. We had 9 teachers, 14 paras serve about 40 students. And then you heard about our Birth to 2 team, but they run all year. But we ran, of course, our Birth to 2 home visits. We did 3 to 5-year-old referrals and evaluations for special education because early intervention is key, so we don't always want to wait until fall to evaluate for those summer referrals. And at the elementary level, we provided support within targeted services with speech language, pathology, behavior specialists. And then we also did some direct instruction and classroom support for about 14 students in special education. Through targeted services, we just layered on top our special education services. We also did that at the secondary level by layering some paraprofessional support to support students who received special ed services that were accessing middle school targeted services, and then another one to support special education students who were attending credit recovery. Outside of special education, now I'll launch into that, the district had a lot of other programming. The Bridges administrator, Dave Brown, organized credit recovery opportunities for students 9-12 through both in-person and independent study, allowing about 400 students to do credit recovery. I somehow got off my slides here. All right, well, here we go. Middle school and elementary targeted services. We had 240 students access our elementary targeted services, and we had 65 students access our middle school targeted services. So everything secondary was held at the high school this year due to construction, and then our elementary was held at Loyola Del Lago and Jeffers Pond this summer. And then we, in early childhood, also did some things with Ready, Set, Kindergarten through a grant, which was some leftover ARP grant money, and through that we also were able to provide transportation. And then we have community ed. 27 new youth courses offered. So Joel Dahl and his community ed team run programming all year long. But this summer, they had 387 youth courses, 53 adult courses, and we were able to employ 29 youth here in the community, as well as 17 district staff members taught a class as well. We had, look at that, those numbers, 2,500 youth aged 0 to 18 access our community education programs. We have 230 new drivers coming down the pipe there, over 130 band lessons, and then 31 kids took advantage of our Laker Learners tutoring students, which is a new offering. 93 adults and 43,430 total hours used by the district and community of our district facilities. So if you think there's nothing going on in the summer in a school district, this will tell you that we are very busy. And those, 43,000 hours, we didn't even have, the middle schools, Five Hawks or Bridges open because of different things. So. And then Kids Company was very, very busy with 500 students, 80 staff. Again, we were able to employ some of our local youth to help support those 500 students. And I think that's it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. I tried to go really fast in the interest of time. All right.
Thank you. I just, go ahead.
I was going to say, how does this summer enrollment compare to last summer? Did we go up? Did we go down? Did the
So
lack
I
of
think-
pools have an impact?
I believe Joel would have to answer that question, but just summer swim alone is a pretty big program, so I would have to imagine some of our community ed was down just because summer swim is a pretty big, big thing. But hopefully we can get that back and going. But I can certainly have Joel follow up with you to let you know how that was, for sure.
Right.
Okay?
I was just going to add, I saw Dave Brown left the room, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
400
400
students in credit recovery after
Yep.
kind of, the tumultuous times we've had. That's wonderful.
Yep.
It's a big deal
absolutely.
for those kids and for our district and our
Yep.
community, so.
And he's
big
offered two
thanks.
different ways. They can do it asynchronously a little bit at home, but they also, for those students that want to come in, we also offered an in-person option. So he was very creative in that way.
That's
And
awesome.
I will say, our students, so I went to a couple of the programs, and our ALC students were there in person. So in summer, they're making an active choice to be fully in person because they were going through credit recovery like you wouldn't believe. So it was just absolutely amazing to see, and I just want to be clear too, this wasn't just for students who have historically struggled. COVID really disrupted a lot of our high-performing students too to get off track. And so we had a really unique mix of students over the summer that we haven't had actually in the past. So that was really good to see. So I just wanted to add that. I love the fact that our students who could choose not to be there were actually choosing to be there in
Yeah.
person.
Absolutely.
And I mean, not to belabor this, but the more kids that you get invested in their own learning that way, and it removes some of the stigma of credit recovery because
Yeah.
it's just a thing. Like, we just have to help kids reach their goals, so I appreciate the work.
Which is what
and
a
the-
lot of our summer programming is about, whether it's 9 through 12 credit recovery or our first grade through 8th grade targeted services. It's about academics, but it's also about building community and re-engaging in schools. So that is the purpose. All right.
He's back now that we were done talking about him.
Joe.
Oh, whoops.
I've
My
done that
bad.
before.
See, I knew I needed glasses.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, I really actually do need glasses. A request for additional school buses. So it's recommended to add 2 buses to the current field of 53 buses to help with capacity issues due to the increase in ridership in the middle and high school routes. So this isn't necessarily a vote, it's a FYI. Thank you, Mr. Delwell.
Good evening, Chair Crosby, Board Directors, Dr. Thomas. You do have in front of you a request to add 2 buses to the fleet for the reasons of increased ridership. We have some longer routes, and we have some overcrowded buses.
Great. Not great, but great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for solving the problem. I do not believe this is a vote, correct?
I was gonna say, one of the
It is?
questions. Yeah,
Okay,
one of the
just-
questions
it
I
just-
had
yeah.
was, what's the cost impact of adding the 2 additional buses
What did we
for
figure,
a year?
140?
It was $240,000 to add the 2 buses, and we did budget for that, so it is included in the current, in the 23-24 budget.
Okay.
Okay.
It was budgeted. She actually got brought up when we were talking about it. But I do have a question. Are we still doing the bus share with charter schools and a couple of other schools in the area? Isn't there a?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so.
Has that changed also because of the increased ridership, or is that
No,
going to be
that would
staying
not
the same?
impact our need for a bus.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve this ask for 2 buses?
So made.
By Director Brennick. Can I get a second?
Second.
By Director Atkinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. That passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll be looking at the budget calendar for 23-24. The draft presented by Director Frederickson.
Thank you, Chair Crosby, directors, Dr. Thomas. You have in front of you the draft timeline for the 24-25 budget planning. I think the biggest thing to note on here is that we are, hopefully, if everybody agrees to this schedule, we will be approving the budget 2 months earlier than we have in the past. We'll be asking for final approval in April. So we are moving a lot of things up. We have kind of scheduled it out so that any decisions that need to be made will be discussed at the Finance Advisory Committee and then bring to board study sessions and then to the board for direction until we finally do the approved budget in April. And I think it just, we need to get kind of in front of some of the hiring. We want to be able to offer positions quickly so that we can get staff hired before we lose them to other districts. And I think this will just help us with our overall planning as we move forward. We still are planning to do the town hall meetings. We'll still continue to do 2 of those. And then, again, some of those dates, like the levy, we can't change those. Those are required dates that are due to the Minnesota Department of Education. But I think we can easily move up our whole process by a couple months. I'm happy to take any questions. Again, this is a draft. We can certainly adjust things as we move along and see how all this works, but this would be my recommendation.
Can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
By Director Bullion and a second?
Second.
By Director France. Any comments or questions?
I'd just like to say thank you for this. Anytime we can be more proactive instead of reactive is a win in my opinion, and I appreciate the wanting to get, ahead of things for hiring. I think it just will help us overall in our planning as well, so thank you for all the work you've done in that, Tammy.
I'd second that, Tammy. I think this is fantastic that we have this. I just hope we can keep this type of schedule in the biennium year.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't want to set expectations too high there.
I'll just add, if I may, this is something that we talked about this first year, and you heard Tammy and I speak to being accustomed to a little bit more aggressive calendar, and so you see that before you today. I think the other piece, and several of you brought this up during the staffing conversations, was when we were having, by state statute, those who were probationary had to automatically get released, and that was coming so late. So again, I think the integrity and the respect for our staff, even though it's statute that guides some of those decisions, we're going to be able to have a lot of those decisions much earlier, work through our process, and if able, bring them back in a timely fashion and not be at the 11th hour negotiating some of these bringbacks because they've already been locked into somewhere, a different place. They actually now have time to let that process play out a little bit. Without just jumping to a job. They can actually work with us to stay with us, and that's what we're looking for, is that continuity of staffing. So again, I think there's a lot of unintended benefits that come from a more aggressive calendar. Yes, it does make all of us work a little harder. I wouldn't say harder. It makes us work a little smarter. And it's a Valentine's Day gift that we give to the principals. They get all their staffing allocations thereabouts.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, just any complexities that there would be around decisions at the legislature, but, we can work backwards sometimes too if we have to. So thanks for your time. Work on this.
And then I would just, for the finance committees, if there's any adjustments that need to be made to those, so that, I know there's been discussions within the finance meetings about maybe different changes on how that committee is going to be utilized. Our finance directors can add to that, but the one meeting I see is December 19th. And then I know this is the end of this year, but we are looking at December 11th for the board meeting to approve the final budget, but then we have an advisory meeting after that meeting. So just understanding if those finance advisory meetings align with, before the budget discussions, so that they can have input.
So that December 11th is for the final, this year's budget, if we need to do that. And again, we'll have plenty of conversations between now and, we're actually having our first finance committee meeting tomorrow. We've added a couple more to our, kind of our calendar for meeting with them. So there'll be plenty of time to have those conversations as long as we're following the calendar. We know what dates to expect, what we're going to talk about at the board. So there'll be plenty of time. I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
So I would ask Julie, since she's treasurer, that obviously if that's for the current budget, the December 19th meeting has no impact, right?
No, I mean,
Yeah, it's not, doesn't have anything to do with approving anything ahead of time. Okay.
Right. And those discussions would have happened in the August and October meetings. Yeah.
Ooh, wouldn't like the bus conversation be part of it, like what we just approved?
Yes.
It's a similar topic.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the proposed budget calendar?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes 6-0. Then finally, in terms of new business, we're on the levy, setting a levy meeting date, which we're required to do, and the levy meeting will be held on Monday, December 11th at 7 p.m. at the beginning of our regular board meeting. So can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
By Director Atkinson, a second.
Second.
By Director France, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0 as well. Under policy tonight, we have no first or second reading of policies. We are looking at a board policy approval for the school 534 school meals policy. You're available. You're available. Okay, so I'll take a motion to pass and a second, and then we can open it up.
So made.
By Director Bullion, and a second.
Second.
By Director France. Thank you for coming tonight to answer any questions for the board. We had already viewed this previously.
No
Yes.
changes on our end.
No changes.
I have a question. Yeah.
Okay.
In the policy, it says the communication of policy under 5. The school district will post this policy on the school district's website or the website of the organization where the meal is served, in addition to providing the required written notification described above. Is it possible to post this within the school cafe under the menu, like the left-hand menu, so parents can see the policy or a link to the policy? I mean, I understand we put it in our policy committees.
Yeah.
Our policy packets. But because this is specific to school meals, and I know that there's some changes this year, I'm just wondering if that's possible to put it there for.
In the school cafe app?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can ask the.
Or a link to it.
Or a link to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
school
I can
meals
ask
policy
them.
link to it.
Okay.
We could ask Christine.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh, and then I had one other question.
For the board. Is that-
that might be, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I don't think most parents will look for it there, but yeah. As
Got
long
it.
as it's where it's supposed to be and it's in the policy, I don't care where you post it.
Perfect. Thank you.
As a parent, that's where I look for all my meal information, would be in that app. But thank you. The other thing is, a question. So when a child's meal balance goes to negative, which mine students do, I know that I have an alert in there that says, please notify me so that I can review it to make sure he's not just buying fruit snacks for his friends. So, do they automatically get an alert, though, if the parent doesn't sign up the alert? Because I believe that does state this in this policy. So
They have to sign up for that. They have to choose to have an alert at a certain level.
Okay, so then.
And then it's not an alert, but we will send notifications when the meal account goes negative.
So we do send it, so they don't necessarily have to send up for an alert?
Well,
They don't. Okay, because like I said, it says that in the policy here,
We,
so.
sorry if I may just
Yeah,
say,
please.
we send the notification per policy for negative balance.
Mhm.
The alert piece that you set may be higher than where we make
Yeah,
our call.
no, I understand.
So
Mhm.
that's how we would do it. Mhm.
So basically, if the parent doesn't send an alert, they're still gonna get an email saying that their meal
balance is
account
negative.
is in balance, and then we would share options of sign up for assistance or whatever the options are per our policy. Okay, great, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, of course. Okay. All in favor of approving policy 534?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. So we are on administrative reports. Dr. Thomas, have you got any updates for us tonight?
As you heard from our summer report, it's been a busy summer, so I've got a few, and I'll be efficient, very quick. So just recently, we had a Prior Lake Chamber membership meeting, and that was in July, actually, mid-July. And just want to let you all know, it was the city manager's, Jason's State of the City address, which is always great to understand kind of what's happening, specifically in this case around Prior Lake. And there are some commercial and residential developments going into Prior Lake, which is still going to only represent some modest growth. We have some single-family home construction. There are a couple of apartment projects being proposed as well. Don't know how many kids will come with some of those. I think that was going to be your millennial lofty kind of spots with rooftop restaurants. We also talked about the cannabis legislation, and it is something that the city of Prior Lake, they will prohibit use of cannabis in public places. The council passed an ordinance also requiring licensure to sell low-dose THC edibles to help ensure and in part not being sold to minors. So they're doing what they can to ensure that there's licensure requirements. And until the state kind of gets their things together, I think we're going to have some adjustments going on. But just know that that's something that we're vigilant and watching for. Kind of in this spirit of this bill, knowing that it wasn't across the finish line, that's why we also reintroduced the canine sweeps. So that's something that we will continue with in partnership with our local law enforcement as well. And I would say on that note, there are some changes legislatively around SRO components, and so we are meeting next week with both Prior Lake and the City of Savage Police Departments, their chiefs and respective staffs, and our safety and emergency staff to walk through some of those logistics of any and all kind of changes or implications that might have with regards to police in our schools and SROs, et cetera. So I'll provide an update with you all on that after we've had that meeting to level set together. Several of you enjoyed a Night to Unite, very first of August, and that was a great opportunity to connect with our community. And we had our administrators, several of you, going out to neighborhoods all throughout Prior Lake, Savage, and Credit River. So just thank you all that participated in that. It's a great way to build community, and met with a lot of our electeds at various parties, and played with students. I think the biggest draw was kids playing on our buses. So thank you, Jim, for arranging buses. Who knew that was going to be better than our water bottle swag? So thank you for that. And to our bus companies, the drivers were great too, because they were also connecting with families. And these are some of the same drivers that are driving our students on the routes. Just this past weekend, we had Prior Lake Days, downtown Prior Lake, a great opportunity that many of us, and several of you as well, participated in sponsoring a booth. And really, again, opportunities for us to be present in our community at every kind of function that we can. That is a big push. I know the staff are tired of asking them to go out to all these different things, but the more we're in community, the more we're going to build community, the more we're going to have, an ability to talk about the great things that are happening in our schools. So thank you to all the staff who are participating in that. We had our MSBA and MDE back-to-school conference and kickoff last week, so there was 2 days worth, actually 3 days worth of learning there. So great opportunity to connect with a variety of board members and school leaders throughout the state of Minnesota. I did put a brochure, not a brochure, a pamphlet from one of the, not a pamphlet, a packet from one of the sessions that I attended that I think is going to be a big issue that we're going to continue to have conversation about. And so that's the type of learning that we're engaged in. So always a great opportunity to do that summer workshop with both MSBA and MDE. And then we also heard from our lobbyists from all our respective groups as well. That was really enlightening. Just a couple more quick hits. I think I shared this with you all last year, actually, but I was selected to be part of a national fellowship program for Learning-Centered Leadership Lab. And this is where I'm partnered with other superintendents from around the country to share ideas of practice. We also come to the lab with a problem of practice. And just to share with you, the board, and our community, the problem of practice that I am bringing forward is to figure out how we lead effectively through difference. Obviously, that's not unique to us, but it's one that I think is really important. And I think ideating nationally and understanding what other communities around the country are doing to find ways to lead effectively through that is going to be a great learning opportunity for me professionally, but also to bring some of that learning back here to our district as we think about our efforts locally. And so there will be several meetings and that will come to a close this December, but it's just been a great experience for me to really be a part of this national cohort and this fellowship, so I'm really honored to be a part of that. And then recently I was also nominated and accepted by the board of AMSD to serve on the executive board. So I'll be serving a 3-year term representing our district, but also the metro-wide area for AMSD Executive Board Committee. So I'm really excited about that, and those will happen once a month on Fridays. But that just happened on August 4th. And so I just want to brief the board and our community that I'll be bringing our community voice forward. And the executive board of AMSD is really instrumental in setting forth the legislative agendas as well. So there'll be a lot of advocacy and policy work, even the biennium. Even it's not big policy, but there's money that might be discussed as well. So that will be a lot of the work that I'll be engaged in there, representing our district. So truly honored to serve in that capacity. Lastly, I will say that there's been lots of conversation around school technology. And this is something that we've been talking about internally. And we actually changed some protocols this past year at our middle school campuses to reduce the amount of technology access that our kids are having. There's clearly a time and place for technology. It's not going to go away. But we all are in agreement that we have to find a balance and a level of well-being in how you appropriately interact with technology. And so we'll be partnering with Live More, Screen Less this year to really work with our students and our families to develop protocols from the grassroots, if you will, to really lead the changes that are going to be seen throughout our system. And I would wager to say this is more of a secondary conversation. I've been also having conversations with Dr. Bezick at the high school. Because we changed some of our protocols at the middle school, we have a cohort now of 9th graders who are under a practice that's very different than maybe what the high school philosophy has been. And so we're kind of merging these two practices together, and that will be part of the BAR kind of 9th grade orientation, if you will, to help bring tighter controls and parameters around that. But more so, kind of what we're going to be doing at the middle school, I think that's going to be our prototype that can be our launch kind of secondary wide. So I just asked our principals to come forward tonight to just very briefly share a little bit about our new partnership with Live More, Screen Less, and what that will mean for our campus, our middle school campus this year, and what is to kind of be a foreshadow for what could come for secondary as a whole.
Absolutely. Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Thomas, Board Chair Crosby, Board Directors. To give you just a little bit of a background of what we did this past year. There was some conversation around wanting to bring more clarity for students because, as you know, when it has come to technology and cell phones in particular, it really has been classroom to classroom, and it's been different in each one. And that can be confusing for students, which also leads to students taking advantage in some situations. And so we really wanted to try to bring a little more clarity around that. So we actually had a group of teachers which worked together to really form common expectations for the students. And with that, the phones were to be out during or put away. When I say out, put away during the class periods. And then at the end of the year, we went ahead and provided a survey to our staff to say, how did that work? Having a little more clarity around it. And the results were very positive. Our teachers said that they saw a lot more student engagement. They saw that they were actually dealing with less technology cell phone issues because of the fact that the students knew what the expectations were. We did find that there certainly were still some areas of growth that we had, in them areas that we can provide more clarity. And so that's really what this coming year, as we were starting to have conversations with Live More Screen Less. Sasha and I have met with them already 3 times this summer to really start talking about what are some things that we can do to provide more clarity. For example, if we're continuing to say that cell phones should not be out during class periods, we have to make sure that that also means if a student says, I need to go to the bathroom, they're not taking their phone with them to then be on the cell phone in the hallway or in the bathroom. It's during that class period, no matter whether you are inside or outside of the classroom, that those should be put away. And so those are some of the common expectations that we're going to be working with both our staff and our students this year. And so one of the things that we're really excited about with Live More Screen Less is the parent education piece, because as we move forward with this and we say, is this where we want to be? Are there additional steps that we want to take? It's really important that we have everybody, when I say everyone, I'm talking about staff, students, and parents being well educated on what we're doing and why we're doing it, because then it's going to make whatever next potential steps we want to take forward much, much easier. Do you have anything else to add or any? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm excited to hear
Yeah.
how that
Thank you.
goes.
I would just like to say thank you for your leadership on this. As you know, I've been an advocate for this from the minute I sat on this board table. So thank you. I know you guys are the ones who have to take the hard conversations, have the hard conversations with the kids. And so I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Chair Crosby.
Thank you. Any administrative reports tonight?
I've got one.
Just sec. Administrative.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair Crosby. I just have one update, just so you're aware of it. We did have a U.S. Treasury note for $1.5 million mature this month. So we were able to reinvest it in a 12-month, a 16-month, and an 18-month CD. We got, our bids came in at a little over 5%, so we were able to get in there before the Feds lowered the interest rates. So we're anticipating about a $90,000 interest on that investment. So it was perfect timing. That's all I had.
Thank you. That's great. Okay. Board reports.
I have one. Okay. I attended the early bird session last Sunday night with the MSBA conference. The title was High Conflict, Strategic Retreat, and Compromise, and I have trouble with the word conflict sometimes because I don't think it's always about conflict. I think that's a very strong word sometimes that gets overused, but it was fascinating. And I have a not so great handout from it. The type is a little small, but if anybody's interested, but it was fascinating about how to have these conversations and how to weed out the unnecessary and the necessary. And it was very fascinating. And I was sitting in a room with 60 people from around the state. I sat next to the Proctor superintendent, who's just a lovely man. He just finished his first year as superintendent there. And it was just wonderful. And one of the pieces that came out of that, going back to your leadership lab topic of lead through difference. There was a book that's currently on my Amazon list, so I'm waiting for that to arrive. It's called Common Ground, A Search for Common Ground, and it's these two gentlemen who have very different views on some things, but they talk about K through 12 education, just any topic. And it's basically their email correspondence with each other in this book. And I'm so looking forward to reading it because I think it's a great practice. And can't wait to share it. And I just wanted to share it with you because it was a very, very good night spent on a Sunday night in Brooklyn Park. And can't wait to read the book. And I think this is the last school board meeting before school starts. So I just want to wish everybody a happy first day.
Thank you. Other board members, board reports?
I just wanted to say that I was really encouraged by our professional development workshop. I was especially encouraged that the language of leadership that we learned from Studer that day was something that our senior leadership team has already been learning. So I love that because it unifies us in that training. I'm expectant that modeling of that type of language, the what's it called?
Leading up.
Managing up. I'm expectant that by us modeling that language and growing in it, that we will foster healthier communication. And those patterns will foster trust and collaboration, both internally in the district and outside externally with our community. So I just think I was grateful for that.
Other board reports tonight?
Well, I was renewed as, for the Washington DC K through 12 STEM committee. So they take one representative from each state. And I've been on that for 10 years, and they asked me to renew my membership and go to the committee meetings in DC with the education leaders from the individual states. So, and that's not just public schools, it's all education, so I just said yes, put on my crazy hat, and put one more thing on my plate.
Great.
Report back.
Congratulations. Okay, any other updates? Summer's a little quieter, but, and congratulations, Dr. Thomas, on those two recognitions, and we're excited for our district and for you, and I mean, all those things are really good for our community.
Yeah.
And you, so it's good news. I think that covers all board reports, right? Okay, so future events are new teacher in-service days, which is the 21st through the 23rd, and then we will have a board study session on August 28th at 6 p.m. And can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So made.
By Director Bullion, and a second.
Second.
By Director Atkinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0. Thank you. We'll go into closed session for negotiation strategy discussion. We'll take a little brief break.